Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, kind of mind-bending thought experiment. Right now, I want you to imagine taking your exact current self and dropping you directly into the deep, ancient past. And no, we're not talking about a sci-fi time travel scenario where you've got a backpack full of modern gadgets. I mean, taking the very essence of who you are today and just plunking it down onto a wild, prehistoric landscape.
All right, Section 1. Dropped into the past.
I really want you to picture your exact personality right now. Think about your specific sense of humor, your temper, or maybe that very particular way you get anxious right before making a big decision, or even the way you fall in love. Got it? Okay, now imagine all of that completely unchanged, 100% intact. Could your exact personality survive 300,000 BC? Just picture it. You've got no smartphone in your pocket, literally no one around you speaks a recognizable language, there's no roof over your head. Sounds absolutely terrifying, right? You'd probably assume you'd feel like a total alien, like some tragically misplaced species trapped in the wrong era. But the real answer is actually way stranger, and honestly a lot more fascinating. You wouldn't feel like a different species at all. You'd actually feel almost exactly like yourself. You would just finally be facing the world your body was actually built for.
Okay, let's dive into this in Section 2. The exact same hardware.
When we imagine ancient humans, we usually picture a classic primitive caveman, right? Maybe walking a bit hunched over, grunting, definitely lacking our modern sophistication. But anatomically speaking, modern you and 300,000 years ago you actually share the exact same specs. I'm talking the same brain size, the exact same vocal cords capable of complex speech, and the exact same capacity for abstract thought, intricate planning, deep grief, and yeah, even for telling jokes. Paleoanthropologists studying fossils from Jebel Irhoud in Morocco actually prove this. They found skulls from roughly 300,000 years ago that feature essentially modern human anatomy. So we're not some rough draft. We aren't a transitional evolutionary form. That ancient human literally is you. The biological hardware was already completely finished.
Moving on to Section 3, Surviving the Savannah.
So if the biological hardware is exactly the same, what on earth is the difference? Well, think about how much of your daily comfort relies on what we call invisible infrastructure. This is the modern built environment that we totally take for granted. You know, you wake up, there's food in the fridge you didn't have to personally hunt for. You turn a handle and boom, clean tap water flows out. You step outside and there's a shared language spoken by millions of people who all agree on what words mean. Well, in 300,000 BC, none of that exists. Literally zero. So without this invisible infrastructure, your daily routine completely flips. Your first problem every single morning isn't your career or your social status, it's actual physical survival. Your mindset would undergo an immediate, radical shift. You'd wake up and your first thoughts would be, where is water, where is food, and definitely most importantly, what in this landscape wants to eat me? Finding hydration and avoiding predators would instantly take absolute mental priority over everything else. All that modern noise in your head, it would just vanish, completely replaced by a hyper-focused, immediate awareness of your physical surroundings. And just meeting those basic needs was a massive undertaking. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham, who studies the origins of human cooking, points out that the control of fire was the ultimate game-changer here. Controlled fire made food safer, it made it digestible, and it made it calorie-dense in a way that just foraging for raw leaves and roots never could. Without fire, early humans would have spent almost all their waking hours literally just chewing and trying to keep themselves alive. It was an incredibly demanding physical environment.
Which brings us to Section 4, the ancient need to belong.
So how exactly would you survive this? You might think you'd need to become some sort of lone wolf, a rugged individualist relying solely on your own wits. But honestly, that's a total modern myth. Humans absolutely did not survive ice ages, giant predators, and famine through sheer individual brilliance. We survived through strict group cooperation. Now, what's really interesting about this is the psychological impact of how we raised our young. Evolutionary anthropologist Sarah Hrdy argues that human children required just a massive amount of care for years. I mean, human infants are incredibly vulnerable for a long time. Early humans could only possibly survive by sharing that heavy childcare burden across an entire community. You couldn't just dump it on two parents. That single absolute requirement for community childcare didn't just ensure survival, it completely reshaped human psychology forever.
And that leads us to this really powerful equation: social exclusion equals physical danger. Because we relied so heavily on the group to survive and raise kids, being left out of the group meant you were probably going to die. This ancient survival calculation perfectly explains your modern cravings for belonging. If you were dropped onto that savanna, the absolute first thing your personality would do is desperately search for a group. You know that deep fear you feel of missing out? or being excluded from a friend group or a clique at work, that isn't just some shallow modern insecurity. It's a biological survival mechanism. It's literally a piece of ancient software that is still running perfectly in your brain today.
All right, section 5, teeth instead of typing.
Now, here is where this thought experiment gets a little uncomfortable, but it's really where the reframe lands. We definitely have to acknowledge the brutal discomforts of the prehistoric past. I mean, no painkillers. A simple scratch could get infected and take you out in days. Even if you survived childhood, life could end abruptly. But when you actually compare modern life to prehistoric life, anthropologist James Sussman's research really complicates our assumptions. He studied the time allocation of surviving hunter-gatherer societies like the Juhoansi of the Kalahari, and what he found is wild. These groups often spent way fewer hours per week actually securing food than a modern person spends grinding away at a standard 40-plus hour job. So what did they do with all that extra time? Long stretches of rest, deep storytelling, and just massive amounts of social time. So that image we have of prehistoric humans constantly starving and struggling, it's largely a modern projection. They actually had a pretty impressive amount of leisure.
So let's summarize the real trade-offs of this thought experiment. If you went back to 300,000 BC, yes, you would absolutely be trading frustrating highway traffic for the very real threat of large predators. You trade the anxiety of an overflowing inbox for the terrifying risk of famine during a bad season. But crucially, you would also completely lose that constant, agonizing background hum of non-lethal modern anxiety. You would lose the chronic stress caused by things that honestly cannot actually kill you.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core mismatch of our modern lives. Our nervous systems are perfectly calibrated for threats with teeth. We're talking immediate physical dangers, like predators or a sudden famine. When a lion jumps out, your adrenaline spikes, you run, and the threat is either over or, well, you are. But today we're constantly facing threats with typing, harsh emails from a boss, missed digital notifications, vicious comment sections. Our ancient nervous system reacts to that rude email the exact same way it reacts to a stalking predator. But the catch is, the threat never physically resolves. It just pings us endlessly.
Think about it. If you dropped your exact unchanged personality onto that ancient savanna, placed right back into the world it was fundamentally built for, a truly strange and wonderful thing might happen. The chaotic, specific noise in your modern head might finally just go quiet. It would be replaced by a much older, simpler kind of natural alertness. You wouldn't need to become a completely different person to survive there. You just need every instinct you already possess running exactly as it was intended to. Honestly, it would feel, perhaps for the very first time in your life, like finally coming home. Like you're finally being used for exactly what you were built to do.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Next time you think about your daily stresses, your fears, your deep, deep need to fit in, I want you to ask yourself, is your anxiety a malfunction? Is there actually something broken about you? Or are you just a piece of perfect, incredibly successful ancient software currently trying to run in the completely wrong modern world? Really changes how you see yourself, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the world around you.